Hey, family, listen, it is Pastor Laurent here, and I'm so glad that you stopped by. I don't think it's an accident. I don't think it's a coincidence. I think you're right here, right now, in this moment, because God is getting ready to speak to you. So, listen, again, I'm excited that you're here. I want you just to buckle up, get comfortable. For the last several weeks, we've been in a series that we've titled Wrestling with Rejection. Maybe you can fill me on this if you have ever felt the weight, if you've ever felt the shame of rejection. Listen, it's one of those things that, listen, it sticks with you. It's like a scab that you just you can't easily kind of get rid of it. It lingers a while because it stings a while. But what we're talking about in this series and what we have been talking about and unpacking is discovering how rejection really is a gift. And so we've been flipping the script. We've been changing the narrative on how we perceive and how we see rejection. So listen, if this is your first time here, listen, I want you to go ahead and make sure that you hit the like button, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, make sure that you are following us on, that you've subscribed to our YouTube page, Fresh Fire Church KY. Make sure that you go follow the page so that you don't miss anything, sermon content, Bible studies, all that other stuff is here. Again, if you're following us on Instagram, if you're following us on Facebook, listen, make sure that you just hit the like button. So again, great big God bless you. All the Fresh Fire family, listen, I'm glad you're here tonight as well. We want to leave this series with the understanding that rejection can work in our favor. Let me maybe put it like this. The main point that we've been driving home, especially the last few weeks, has been just because that you have experienced a thing doesn't mean that you have to embrace a thing. And so experiencing rejection is one thing, but embracing rejection is something else. And so, where we left off last week in our study was we were talking about the 6 ways to overcome rejection. We were talking about the 6 ways to overcome rejection. And real quick, before we go ahead and finish up, we covered the first three. We're going to finish up the last three tonight. But before we get to the final three, I will recap the first three. I'm going to hit it and we're going to move on because I want to make sure that we can spend some time on the last three that we didn't get a chance to speak about. But if you haven't had a chance to yet, I want to make sure, listen, go back. I want to encourage you to go back, check out the last couple of weeks of our Bible study series, check out the last couple of weeks of our sermon content. I just believe if you have found yourself wrestling with rejection, you can't move past it. You don't feel delivered from it. You don't feel free from it. You still feel the sting. You still feel the shame. You still feel the embarrassment. You still feel the hurt. No matter how many months, years, or even decades ago, that thing still stings, and that thing still feels fresh for you. You've been wrestling. You've been wrestling. Tonight, we're changing the narrative. Tonight, we're flipping the script so that you don't have to continue to wrestle, Jacob. You can get free from rejection and understand that, listen, rejection truly is God's redirection for your life. Come on, if that's sounding good, listen, somebody just put a hand clap emoji, put a clock it in the chat tonight, right? 6 ways to overcome rejection. We kicked it off last week with talking about our first nugget was that God uses rejection to remind us of our true identity. So knowing who we are, rejection has a tendency to make us question our worth. But God tells us the truth about who we are, that we are God's sons, we are God's daughters. And then where we went to was our second nugget last week, where we spoke about God using rejection as redirection. Proverbs 16 verses 9, it talks about how in our hearts, how God maps out, how in our hearts we map out our own course, but it is the Lord now that establishes our steps. So that's important now that God uses rejection to redirect us. And then also, number three, where we left off was that God uses rejection to strengthen us through the rejection. So, in other words, now the trials that we experience, the tribulations that we go through, the rejection that we experience, but not embrace. James says to consider it pure joy. Listen, that when you experience trouble, when you experience trials, that it is being your faith is being tested. It's the testing of your faith which now produces something. It produces perseverance. So when we reject it, we ain't rejected to just be rejected. We're rejected because something is coming out of it. Something is being birthed because of it. Something beautiful is coming from it. So again, that was where we left off last week. I want to share the last three fresh, 4, 5, and 6, the last 4, 5, and 6 ways, the last 3 ways, number 4, number 5, number 6, that we get to overcome rejection. So number 4, let's get to it. Number 4, God uses rejection to comfort us. God uses rejection to comfort us with his presence. One of the promises, I want you to hear this. One of the promises that God gives us as believers is this thing called peace. Okay, hear me tonight. God uses rejection to comfort us. And one of the things that God promises us, one of the benefits that we receive as being believers, is this thing called peace. And I know many of us have heard about peace, but many of us really don't utilize peace. Or let me maybe put it like this: many of us have heard about peace, but many of us underutilize the privilege of peace. And so, because we don't understand the real benefits that come with God, because we don't really understand all the perks that come with God, it's like starting a job. And the first day of work, it's like drinking from a fire hose, because you got HR coming in, you got IT coming in to get you all set up. You got all of these things now that are going on all in one day, and it's hard to remember everything. It's hard to remember all the health benefits. It's hard to remember how many PTO hours you get. It's hard to remember what your copay is going to be. It's hard to remember what the vision and dental plan is going to look like, because it's all kind of coming at you at once. When we accept Christ, we may have that similar experience or expression when it's really hard to retain all the benefits and perks that come with knowing God. The beautiful thing is we've got this user manual, y'all, that we get to go back through, that we get to flip back through when we need to refresh ourselves on the perks and the promises that come with being connected to the divine. One of the things that connects us, and one of the things that has been promised to us because of our connection, is that we find comfort in the presence of God. Where we miss truly living in the presence and power of peace is when we step outside of the parameter of God's peace, and start now looking to other people and other places to bring us peace. What we end up doing now is we then start looking for people to bring us peace. We then start looking for things to bring us peace. And then the real wrestle with rejection comes because the people that we were hoping would accept us, that we would find peace, it ruptures and disturbs something in us, because we've been rejected, and we never get to discover that peace that we've been looking for, when the truth of the matter is God never needed us to discover peace from people. That's why we don't feel fulfilled from people. That's why we can have habits that we consistently indulge in, and what it does is it brings a temporary comfort. I'm not trying to knock on nobody's door. I'm not trying to walk in nobody's alley tonight, but we can just run a few things. You ever notice when folk, they like a little sippy sip excessively. And if you ever notice, the term for an alcoholic is someone that returns back to alcohol over and over and over again. Why do they continue to turn back to the bottle? Because the bottle only provides this momentary, temporary relief from the reality of what it is that they want to run from. And that's the thing that robs us of our peace, is we're looking for peace in all the wrong places. And those places may be able to provide temporary temporary perception of peace, right? It feels like peace. The moment I need to just take a little hit of nicotine or a little hit of crack or a little hit of cannabis, there is some temporary relief in that. I'm not knocking that, but what I'm speaking to now is the peace that I'm talking about isn't peace that's temporary. The peace that I'm referring to is the comfort that God brings and being in and living in the realm of his peace, which is permanent. God's presence is the ultimate balm for our brokenness and our rejection. Peace. Psalm 34:18 says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who have been crushed in spirit. And I want you to get this tonight, because you may be thinking, well, listen, I ain't always felt like God was close. I know at times when we take a step back and we really kind of look at life and the way that life is unfolding and the way that people show up in the world and society and how things happen to good people, bad things happen to good people. And it may feel like, listen, God ain't close. God, where were you when this happened to me? Where were you when I had to live through this childhood trauma? God, where were you when I was triggered again? Where were you when I was introduced to something that would completely alter and shape the destiny and trajectory of my life? God, where were you when I faced that shameful thing? God, where were you when the loss of a loved one passed? God, where were you when I was trying to raise my children? God, where were you when I was trying to keep my man? God, where were you when I was trying to stay in school and get a good education? God, where were you when I was trying to stop doing the illegal stuff and find a legitimate legal job? God, where were you? And it may feel like in moments that it feels like God isn't close. But what I've come to realize in those moments is sometimes when it feels like God isn't near, it's not because God left me, but sometimes it's because I left God. Went looking for the acceptance of people, and the people left me rejected. And the places and spaces that I wanted to enter, they left me absolutely depleted and rejected. But God's peace is a permanent peace. God's presence is this powerful, unapologetic, um, always accepting, never rejecting presence in our lives. We don't always get to experience being able to come out of our rejection until we can fully embrace and experience being in the presence of God. When we yearn to rely more on the presence of God than relying on the presence of people, when we learn to rely more on the power of God instead of relying on the presence of others. But can I tell you what I love about God? Even in moments when we end up in spaces and places and with people and things that have rejected us, and it looks like God isn't close to us because it feels like God left us, when truth of the matter is we went looking for something more, because what God has bestowed upon us, I guess we really haven't fully accessed or tapped in to all of the perks. But what I love about God is no matter how far I've gotten away from God, you can never get far enough that God can't find you. I want you to hear me tonight. To every person that has felt rejected, to every person that has felt dejected, to every person that has felt overwhelmed, that has felt consumed, that has felt oppressed, that has felt like God has been fleeting, that has felt like God is far. We can never get so lost that we can't be found by God. Somebody ought to hear me tonight. We can never ever get so broken that God can never put our pieces back together again. We can never get so worried that we forget that God is about to trouble the waters. I want you to know tonight that no matter where you end up, God's presence and power is able to meet you right where you are. Oh, ain't that good news? I'm about to run. We ain't about to finish this lesson because I'm about to take off. I mean it. I'm about to go running. Psalm 139 puts it like this: God, where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? David said. If I go up to the heavens, God, you're there. David said, even if I decide to make my bed in the depths of hell, God, you are there as well. Nowhere can I be that the presence and the power of God cannot meet me there. The highest mountain, the deepest valley, if you will invite the presence and the power of God in, peace that passes all understanding. Listen, we got to move on. Number five. God uses rejection to remind us that Jesus was rejected too. One thing for us to hold on to is that even Jesus was rejected. I'm about to say this, and I know this is about to sound real terrible, but listen, we keeping it real in this season. One of the things that brings me a little bit of comfort when I'm going through is the fact that other folk have gone through as well. So I'm able to look now at the thing that I have experienced, and I'm able now to embrace it. Listen, watch this, because I'm not some weird anomaly whose experience is unheard of. But no, because even in my rejection, I understand that Jesus is familiar with rejection as well. Jesus experienced rejection. Jesus experienced betrayal. Jesus experienced embarrassment. Jesus also experienced ridicule. Here it is. Don't miss this. If Jesus experienced a thing, and I'm following Jesus, understand now that rejection isn't a sign of failure, but rejection is a sign of fellowship. If Jesus was rejected, I have experienced rejection. I haven't failed. That means I'm following. Now, I'm not saying that that's easy. I'm not saying that that's an easy thing to overcome. But because Jesus overcame rejection, we can too. I love how Psalm puts it. We've been in Psalms all night tonight. Psalm 118:22 says now that the stone which the builders refuse now becomes the head cornerstone. Acts 4:11 puts it like this, that Jesus is the stone that the builders rejected, who has become the cornerstone. I don't want you to miss this. I don't want you to miss this. Because Jesus wasn't the only one that they had rejected. In other words, it didn't end there. But what happened was the one that they rejected, the one that they didn't want, ended up accomplishing the very thing that they didn't want accomplished. And so, yes, he was rejected by people, but he was accepted by God. And so, whenever you've got God's permission, you don't need anything else. Whenever you've got God's permission, you don't need anybody else. When purpose is your permission slip, you don't need anybody else's permission. We tend to think that because it ended with a person, that ended your purpose. No. You've got God's permission slip. You've got God's permission. You don't need anybody else's permission. Number 6, let me give you this last one. God uses rejection and turns rejection into something greater. What is that greater thing? That greater thing for us to experience is purpose. In other words, God will use the pain of your rejection for your purpose. Many people in the Bible, they've experienced rejection. We not by ourselves. This isn't a new idea in the 21st century. But many people had experienced rejection. David, Joseph, even Paul, but God used their experience of rejection as elevation. In other words, their date with rejection was actually designed for their destiny. And so, what I need you to understand tonight, and what I need you to hold on to throughout this series, throughout the next season, throughout the rest of your life, I need you to understand that there will be times when a thing looks like it will never happen. People won't believe it can happen for you, and they will even tell you that it will never happen for you. But when God says a thing, it must come to pass. Because, see, God isn't a man that he should lie. And so the thing that God spoke to you about you is really going to happen for you. Romans 8:28 puts it like this: For we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. For we know that all things are working together for our good. For we know that all things are working together for our good. I'm going to say it again. For we know that all things are working together for our good. So when God says a thing, that thing has to come to pass. I need you to get this tonight. I need you to hold on to this the next time you see or sense rejection. There are some things that God has spoken. There are some things that God has permitted, and all of those things are working for you. Now, it's not enough. It's not enough for it to just be working for you. But the caveat to it working for you is you knowing that it is working for you. And so the sun may not rise, the moon may fall out of the sky, but the word of the Lord that God has spoken over you, it's got to come to pass. For we know that it's working together. The rejection is working together. The abandonment is working together. The trouble is working together. The trial is working together, because the word of the Lord that has been spoken over you, it is already settled. It's settled that it's working for you. It's a settled matter concerning you. Matthew chapter 6, verses 9 and 10. This is the Lord's Prayer. Put an emphasis though on verse 10, I believe, that says, Thy kingdom come, right? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And so if it's settled in heaven, then it's also settled in your life. I said, if it's settled in heaven, then it is settled in your life. The rejection that you have experienced, listen, it's working. When you let it work, baby, let it work. Don't let it work against you. Let it work for you. You've been wrestling. Oh, but you've been wrestling with good reason. The experience was real. But God is calling and challenging us in this season to embrace the outcome. It's working for you. It's settled. Wherever you may find yourself in this season, in this space in your life, grab hold of the reassurance that the rejection that you have lived through was a gift and was God's redirection. We know it's working. As it has been spoken in heaven, as so shall it be on earth. It has to, concerning you. I know you've been wrestling, Jacob. Oh, but the wind of God is about to blow your direction. Listen, we are out of time, but we are not out of word. I want to see you here this Sunday at 2 p.m. We'll be streaming live. We'll be looking for you again as we will be winding down the rejection series and starting a brand new series coming up here just shortly. Listen, I pray that this series has blessed you. I pray that this series has ministered to you. I pray that throughout just the fabric of your life and experiences that this series has enriched you as you have been wrestling. You are not wrestling alone. God bless you. Set some stuff on fire.